if you ever see the cover, some people think it is a children's book because the cover is sort of this naive 60s looking cover. But it's not for children. It's for, I guess the best demographic would be, well, just for normal, basic, intelligent human beings. But if they did live during the 60s, and remember especially the music of that time, not to mention the space race, those would be the most specific demographic. But a friend of mine, or not a friend, somebody I'm working with, is also turning this book into a comic book these days. So that may reach out to younger people who don't like perhaps reading longer books. The town, I think, is based on these little towns I lived in California in the 60s and 70s, and also in this area of London that I've been walking around for 30 years. And it's the sort of people, the sort of comfortable feeling that there is in the town I created. It's quite a laid back town with, fairly quirky characters who would never want to do anything too difficult, but when the moon is threatened, they try to get together to see if they can do anything about it. But the town itself, it's a rural town of 500 people, and they have town meetings. And what happens is this: somebody comes and starts what's called a moon center there to capitalize on the town's love for their moon. And somebody starts a moon church. You mentioned a church. And that sort of thing gives a flavor. They rename all the roads after things to do with the moon also. It's happened quite a bit in America too. I know down in the South, there are names of streets, I believe, that were named after Confederate generals, for instance, and they've renamed them things like Liberty Street and anodyne names like that. And in this little town, there were names like Good Muse Way and East Street. But when it becomes NASA's first moon town, they rename these streets like Copernicus Broadway and Waxing Way and things like that that have to do with the moon to give it a flavor of this moon city, which sort of drags the town into the space age. I was around when man first landed on the moon do you remember the date, Jake? You were perhaps too young.
I was born in 76. I wasn't alive just yet.
Okay.
I
July
know
20,
it's in 1968, right?
69, close. People do say 68 for some reason, but it was 69. And I guess just that event and just, I don't know, looking up at the moon since then, that's pretty much why I wanted to write a book about the moon to some degree. There were a few main characters. There's this woman named Francine who is an astrogeologist. So she comes to this town to sort of to study astrogeology. And there's a guard who comes to the town to guard this new moon center. And then there's this proofreader, perhaps based on myself more than some of the other characters are, who gets to know this guard quite well. And those are the three main characters. But the person who pushes the plot on is this outsider who comes and decides to take advantage of the town. And his name is Samuel Thwaite. And I didn't mention the other two men, but one of them's name is Banno, Banno, and the other one's name is Triss. It's a slow burn, I would say. The book you sort of sidle up to the main events. You get to know the characters and different people come to town, and it takes a little while for things to get going. But when they do, then they get going quite quickly. I think it helps not to want to read a book to slam you at the first page with a death in the hallway or something. So it's a slow build, I would say.